You live inside a structure you did not consciously design. It has no bars, no locks, no guards standing watch, yet it shapes every step you take. Your mind became this place slowly, brick by invisible brick, built from habits, expectations, and quiet compromises you barely noticed making. You wake each day believing you are free, yet you move within narrow corridors of thought, turning where you have always turned, stopping where you were taught to stop. The prison is subtle. That is why it works. These walls are not born from dramatic failure or obvious weakness. They are formed through comfort, repetition, and distraction. Society does not chain you. It lulls you. It fills your hours with noise so you never hear the scrape of your own limitations. It teaches you to scroll instead of stare inward, to soothe instead of confront, to label restlessness as stress rather than instinct. Over time, restraint feels normal. Confinement feels safe. Ancient warriors understood something you were never taught. Before steel ever crossed steel, the first battlefield was always internal. A man defeated in his own mind had already lost, no matter how sharp his blade. They trained not to escape discomfort, but to stand inside it until it revealed its shape. Today, men mistake ease for freedom and convenience for control, unaware that softness slowly steals range of motion from the spirit. The cost of these invisible limits is not obvious at first. It appears as hesitation, dull ambition, a quiet sense that life is smaller than it should be. You feel it late at night, when the noise fades and something restless stirs beneath your chest. You call it anxiety. It is something else entirely. What if your greatest enemy is not fear itself, but the boundaries you have accepted as normal? Before Miyamoto Musashi became a name carved into legend, he was simply a young man standing inside uncertainty. His early life was not marked by clarity or confidence, but by tension and unease. Each duel he faced carried not only the risk of death, but the weight of doubt pressing against his resolve. His hands held the sword, but his true opponent waited within his own chest. In those early encounters, technique mattered far less than presence. Musashi learned quickly that hesitation dulled the blade before it ever struck. Fear did not arrive as weakness. It arrived as awareness, sharp and unavoidable. He did not run from it. He listened. Ancient warriors understood that fear was not an enemy to be destroyed, but a signal revealing where the mind still fractured under pressure. This stands in stark contrast to the modern man, trained to avoid inner discomfort at all costs. Today, fear is medicated, masked, or ignored until it hardens into paralysis. Musashi did the opposite. He allowed resistance to surface fully, knowing that what rose was not limitation, but instruction. Each moment of internal tension showed him where mastery had not yet reached. The sword, he realized, obeys the mind long before it obeys the hand. Without inner alignment, skill collapses under strain. True progress did not begin with confidence, but with awareness. Seeing his hesitation clearly allowed him to step through it rather than around it. His breakthrough was quiet, uncelebrated, and deeply personal. Legend was not born from arrogance or certainty. It was forged through repeated encounters with fear, met directly and without disguise. Musashi's first victories were not over other men. They were over the unseen barriers that would have ended him long before any blade could. Most men are not defeated by overwhelming obstacles. They are worn down by repetition, the same routines, the same thoughts, the same safe choices repeated until mental barriers harden into permanent borders. What begins as convenience slowly becomes confinement. Days blend together, and stagnation disguises itself as stability. Comfort is rarely questioned because it rarely hurts. It settles quietly, forming invisible ceilings above ambition. Many men shrink their desires not because they lack ability, but because expansion threatens identity. Growth demands friction, and friction exposes weakness. It is easier to believe you are content than to admit you are constrained. Ancient survival demanded constant adaptation. Stagnation meant death. A warrior who failed to evolve quickly became irrelevant. Today, distraction replaces adaptation. Endless noise numbs the friction that once forced change. Screens absorb discomfort, routines dull instinct, and avoidance turns temporary limits into permanent identities. You are not trapped by circumstance as much as expectation. The expectation that life should be manageable, predictable, and safe. When resistance appears, most retreat, mistaking tension for a warning instead of an invitation. Over time, this retreat becomes habit. The mind learns to stop reaching. The tragedy is not failure. Failure teaches. The true tragedy is unused potential, buried beneath layers of avoidance. Strength atrophies when never tested. Vision narrows when never challenged. Many men grow old without ever meeting the edges of themselves, unaware that the barrier they feared was the very threshold they needed to cross. Musashi had little patience for bravado. He understood that loud confidence often concealed fragile foundations. Ancient warriors did not speak endlessly about strength. They measured it in silence, pressure, and endurance. True mental strength was never announced. It revealed itself only when comfort was stripped away. Modern culture is saturated with slogans promising instant resilience. Affirmations, declarations, and surface-level confidence are mistaken for fortitude. Yet belief untested by strain collapses quickly. Performing strength is not the same as possessing it. The former seeks validation. The latter survives without witnesses. Mental toughness is exposed only under weight. Pressure does not create weakness. It reveals it. Musashi trained himself to remain present when the body wanted escape. He learned that strength was not the absence of discomfort, but the willingness to stay inside it without distortion. When panic arose, he did not dramatize it. He observed it, letting it pass without surrendering control. Barriers do not break through belief alone. They yield to presence. To remain still when the mind screams for relief is a rare discipline. Yet it is here that false confidence dissolves and something real takes its place. Quiet, grounded, and unshaken. Strength is not the loud assertion of capability. It is the calm refusal to abandon yourself when discomfort arrives. Musashi understood that the mind, when trained to endure without theatrics, becomes unmovable, not rigid, but steady. And in that steadiness, the illusion falls away. Musashi did not curse resistance. He studied it. Each failure, each delay, each moment where progress stalled became material for refinement. Ancient warriors recognized that resistance sharpened awareness. Without opposition, perception dulled. Growth demanded friction, and friction revealed truth. Mental blocks are not accidents. They appear at the edge of capacity, where old patterns can no longer carry you forward. Modern men often meet this moment with frustration, expecting progress to be smooth and immediate. When discomfort lingers, they assume something is wrong. Musashi assumed the opposite. Pain was not punishment. It was information. Every barrier marks the boundary of transformation. It signals where a former version of you must be shed. Avoidance turns this signal into stagnation. Staying with it turns it into instruction. The warrior learns to read resistance the way others read maps. Slowly, patiently, without resentment. Breakthrough does not occur through forceful escape. It happens by remaining present longer than instinct demands. The mind tries to flee when it senses unfamiliar strain. Musashi trained himself to stay. In that stillness, resistance softened, not because it vanished, but because understanding replaced panic. Ancient wisdom taught that the obstacle is never separate from the path. Modern impatience forgets this. Progress is not linear. It circles, returns, tests again. Each encounter with the barrier deepens capacity, if met honestly. When you stop fighting resistance as an enemy, it transforms into a guide. It teaches where attention must sharpen and where discipline must deepen. The barrier you curse today may be the very force shaping the man you are becoming. If you remain long enough to listen, in moments of real danger, Musashi did not rush. He settled. Life and death pressure revealed the value of stillness. While others fractured under chaos, he became quieter. Ancient warriors knew that movement without clarity was wasteful. Stillness allowed perception to widen. The quiet mind sees openings invisible to the frantic. Modern men react reflexively, mistaking speed for strength. Reactivity feels powerful, but it surrenders control. Pressure exposes inner disorder. When the mind is crowded, perception narrows. Fear multiplies. Musashi trained himself to remain calm as adrenaline surged. He observed his own impulses without obeying them. This discipline created space. In that space, choice returned. Stillness was not passivity. It was dominance over internal chaos. Mental barriers dissolve when panic ends. Panic convinces you that escape is necessary. Calm reveals that staying is possible. The difference is subtle, yet decisive. Under pressure, the untrained mind collapses inward. The trained mind expands. Ancient insight held that clarity emerges when the mind stops grasping. Stillness is not emptiness. It is alignment. From this state, action becomes precise rather than desperate. Musashi understood that victory often occurred before the strike, in the moment where the mind refused to scatter. Asterisk. To cultivate stillness is to reclaim authority over yourself. It is here that mental limits lose their grip. When noise fades, the barrier weakens, and when calm settles, the path forward becomes visible. Musashi walked alone by choice. His wandering was not exile, but discipline. Solitude stripped away performance and pretense. Without witnesses, unresolved limits surfaced. Ancient warriors sought isolation to confront what the crowd concealed. Modern life avoids silence. Validation replaces reflection. Noise fills every gap where self-confrontation might occur, yet solitude reveals truth. Without distraction, the mind can no longer hide from itself. Mental barriers rise, clearly demanding attention. In isolation, escape disappears. There is nowhere to run, nothing to numb the friction. This is where many retreat. Musashi stayed. He allowed loneliness to press against him until it lost its threat. In that space, instinct sharpened. Strength is forged where no one is watching. Away from applause, identity solidifies. Solitude teaches self-reliance, not arrogance. It reveals which thoughts are borrowed and which are earned. Mental barriers crack when avoidance is no longer possible. The breaking point arrives quietly. It feels like emptiness at first, then clarity. When the mind exhausts its resistance, something steadier emerges. Ancient warriors trusted this process. Modern men fear it. Solitude is not absence. It is a confrontation, and within it, the limits that once defined you begin to loosen. One silent moment at a time, Musashi learned to act before doubt could gather strength. Ancient principle held that clarity emerges through movement. Overthinking fractures intention. Action consolidates it. Modern paralysis is born from endless analysis. Mistaking thought for progress. Mental barriers grow stronger the longer they are negotiated with. Hesitation feeds them. Musashi interrupted fear's authority through disciplined action. Not reckless motion, but deliberate engagement. Once movement began, clarity followed. Discipline bridged the space between intention and execution. It did not eliminate fear. It rendered it secondary. When action takes precedence, the mind aligns behind it. Endless planning dissolves into presence. Breakthrough happens in motion, not contemplation. The body teaches the mind what thought cannot resolve. Ancient warriors trusted experience over speculation. Modern men wait for certainty that never arrives. To act beyond thought is to accept imperfection. Movement exposes gaps, yet it also builds momentum. Each step forward weakens the illusion of limitation. Fear loses its narrative authority when action speaks louder. Musashi understood that the mind follows commitment. When you move decisively, internal resistance mental barriers fade, not because they are destroyed, but because they are outrun by resolve. Musashi lived unbound by earlier versions of himself. Mental freedom was not granted through comfort, but earned through endurance. Each internal victory expanded his range of being. The path was lonely, yet precise. True mastery Few understand the discipline required to govern oneself. Modern life rewards conformity and noise. Depth is inconvenient, yet strength expressed through restraint carries quiet authority. Musashi did not seek recognition. He sought alignment. Living beyond old limits does not mean constant struggle. It means clarity. The mind, once fragmented, becomes steady. Decisions simplify. Fear loses its exaggeration. You move through life with fewer internal negotiations. Legacy is not spectacle. It is internal victory sustained over time. Ancient warriors measured success by coherence of self. Modern measures distract from this truth. Yet the body knows when the mind is free. The final image is simple. A man moving through the world unobstructed by walls he once believed permanent. He walks alert, calm, and prepared for shadow, yet unafraid of it. This is not triumph. It is alignment, and it is earned quietly, step by deliberate step.